Y'all ready?
Fish Stripes live on a Friday evening here in August. Joining me as always, we got a smaller crew today. Eli Sussman is with us. Kevin Brawl, as always, and Alex Carver joining me as well. Isaac is at the game. Noah is off. But we are here and ready for the Marlins and Cubs. Usually a pretty interesting series for me, but all of a sudden, with some of the things that have gone down in the Cubs organization, it is suddenly a frustrating one. We'll get into that in a second. But before we talk about the Marlins and Cubs this weekend, we're going to go back to this past week, what we've seen from the Marlins. The Marlins had a 3-game set at the beginning of the week. Then an off day yesterday, a much-needed one, it felt like, after going 1 for 5 on that road trip in Colorado and San Diego. And speaking of, there is Isaac Azip. Welcome in. Good to see you, man. We were getting ready to get into what happened in San Diego. Obviously, Brinson stays hot. He just continues to set the world on fire. And Don Mattingly is back today, and for everybody that wanted to know, yes, he is leaving him in the cleanup spot. So I think that's a big vote of confidence for Lou, that, Rousing was kind of the guy that was pushing him into the cleanup spot, and then Donnie comes back. And first of all, it's great to have Donnie back, after his COVID diagnosis, and he's been away from the team for about a week, 2 weeks, I would say. So it's good to have him back for sure, but leaves Brinson in that 4 spot. That's a huge vote of confidence for him. Am I right, Isaac?
No, yeah, for sure. And Donnie mentioned that today, that how impressed he's been with the way Blues has swung the bat. He was watching all the games on TV. It's like at home, of course, but he was, him and Alfaro were 2 guys that stood out to him, the 2 guys that he mentioned in the press conference today. But yeah, it's definitely huge to see him in the 4th spot with him, and it's going to be, I hope he keeps it up.
Kevin, what were your impressions from that San Diego series as the Marlins dropped 2 of 3?
Well, quickly, I did predict that series, right? But I'm not going to I'm not going to go all out Noah gloating here, but just a quick mention. But yeah, it was a good series. I mean, the Marlins really showed off their offense in that final game. Sandy pitched one hell of a game.
Yeah.
Didn't allow a single run. The other 2 games I wasn't really able to watch them, but Marlins pretty much got crapped on the first game. The second one was okay. Besides that, it was a pretty bad road trip in general, only winning 1 game out of 6 games. So it was not a successful road trip at all. Hopefully they could bounce it back this time and make something happen against the Cubs, who aren't as hot as we think right now.
Well, the Marlins, that's the last time they go west this year, so they're finally done with the West Coast. They obviously went out there a bunch early in the season, but they are back now, and most of their trips are going to be the Central or the East. I think now they start playing. They've got Cincinnati coming up and other teams from that division. But Alex, I want to go to you, man. Tough road trip, 1 and 5. In a couple games in San Diego late, and then you blow it. What were your kind of thoughts on what you saw this last week or so?
No, yeah, the pluses, as you guys said, Brinson keeps going, and then Sandy bounces back from the rough start. And but yeah, I think this is just par for the course for what you're going to see against good teams the rest of this year. And it is what it is, man. This bullpen's overworked, I should say. You got these bullpen games happening every week, it seems, or every series, I guess, with what's happening with this rotation. So, I guess it's to be expected at this point for me, man, that this team's going to struggle and limp to the finish. So it is what it is. But you like to see, the big guys, step up when they need to. I was really glad to see Sandy bounce back from that rough one. That was really cool. And then Brinson's been amazing. So, nobody on here ever, I don't think anybody on Twitter predicted what he's doing. I guess it will be interesting to see how he does now that Donnie's back, because, man, he was great with Rousing at the helm, and Donnie's keeping things the same. So see if he keeps it going, man. I think he can. He looks really good.
And as you were talking, Alex, in AAA, I'm keeping an eye on that game right now. Lewin Diaz just went deep, and Edward Cabrera, who's a guy that I think a lot of us expect to and want to see later in this season, 4 innings, 2 hits, 1 run, 3 walks, and 7 strikeouts. So he's just doing his thing down in AAA. He is been fantastic all year.
Yeah,
and he's really been coming on recently. Yeah, go ahead, Alex.
I put this on Twitter on Eddie just because you mentioned him real quick. That's 30 strikeouts in his last 18.2 innings pitched. So not bad from Edward Cabrera.
Yeah.
12, 11, and then 7 today. So.
Well, Alex, while we're on the subject, man, take us through some of what's going on with this Marlins farm system right now, because the pitching seems to be absolutely on fire. I know when you talk about Jupiter, you saw Dax Fulton, Yuri Perez have both put together 2 tremendous performances each the last 2 times that they've been on the mound. Kyle Nicholas had a great performance this week. Zach McCambley had 5 no-hit innings last night. So, we've been seeing some good hitting performances. Obviously, the pitchers are what usually take the focus in the Marlins organization, but just walk us through what's been going on the farm recently, because it seems like a lot more good, especially on the offensive side of the ball, has been showing up in the back part of this season.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the Jupiter offense really came around just because you mentioned Yuri and Daxton. Like that offense was horrible to start the year, and it's still not fantastic, but with the infusion of these draft guys, a lot of which have done really well. Bennett Hostetler has done really well. Tanner Allen's there. He's doing okay. So yeah, just the infusion of these draft kids going there and getting their first taste of affiliated ball, or I guess I should say second, because some of them stopped in the FCL, but to get their first taste of full season ball, I guess I could say, and to do what they're doing. We know a lot of these are older guys that we picked up in the back end of the draft, right? Like these older collegiate guys. But in any event, to see them, contributing the way that they have in their first, like, I guess, taste of like I said, full season ball, that's huge, man, to see it immediately translate for any prospect. So I really like that from them on that level. You want to talk about pitchers? I can give you another one that's been really impressive is Antonio Velez, pitching with the Snappers in single A advance has been really good. I think he's a little old for that level. I want to see him get pushed up maybe to Pensacola. If one of these guys gets pushed up, maybe Will Stewart could go up to AAA and you could get him a spot there. That would be good to see. You see in AA, Max and Eater just keep going. And then you see Blade coming around. That's been really huge for me. The mechanical adjustments that I've talked about with him. Burdick has had an awesome month so far. So the 2 guys that you wanted to see hit well the start of the year, it took them a little while, but they're doing it. And then the AAA level with Eddie. I mean, Eddie's been absolutely ridiculous. Bryson Brigman still hitting over 300. Those guys have been good all year long. So yeah, man, it's definitely there's always something to watch. We talk about it all the time. There's always something to watch in this minor league system, and there's so many guys that are performing right now. It's hard to name just a few. So there's a few, and I'll give it back to you. But yeah, I could go on forever.
One guy you didn't touch on that I want you to go over real quickly is Cam Meisner in Beloit, who's been coming on recently. He had, it's been a real struggle for him. He's still striking out at a really high rate. But I just want to talk to you about him, what you've seen from him, as he's got the OPS up over 760 now, and he's putting together a pretty nice year. It's not great. It's not the greatest year, but it's really solid.
Yeah, I mean, amazing to see the stats. I mean, you look at what he's done recently. I think it's like a 14 or 15 game hit streak, not looking at it. Just off the top of my head from, tweets that I've sent out, I'm pretty sure it's either 14 or 15 games that he has a hit. And after how he started the year, man, that's awesome to see. This guy had a 200 month of May, June 247. I'm just going through it right now. July back to 214. So this is a guy that has that great hit tool and just has not shown it until now. So awesome to see. I think he's really digging the new park because he's done things there. In Beloit, and yeah, man, it's been good to see out of him. Definitely good to see. We knew he had these tools, but to see it finally show up, I was kind of getting a little down on him at the start of the season. I think people were talking trade, throwing his name around as like a sell low. Man, he's still here, and to see him turning it on is really great. So hopefully he keeps it going.
All right, Alex, I appreciate your minor league report. We'll if anything comes up in the middle of the show, we'll go back to you on the minor leagues. But
yeah, sure.
I mean, those hitters have been really kind of coming on recently, and obviously a lot of the talk had been about how the hitters have struggled so much. But recently, it's been a lot better for the Marlins. But I want to go to Isaac real quickly because he's got to hop off. He's at the game tonight, so this will lead into another discussion that I want to have about starting pitching to finish off the year. So Trevor Rogers is still on the bereavement list. He was on the family emergency and then bereavement, and it doesn't seem like he's going to be back anytime soon. So there were some injury updates today. Isaac, fill us in on those, and then what it means for the Marlins rotation, because they've got to fill innings at the back end of this season.
Right. Well, like you said, it does not look like that Trevor Rogers will be back anytime soon. Unfortunately, your prayers out to him and his family. I hope they recover well from this. Based on the rotation, Eliezer Hernandez was in Miami today. He threw a bullpen, and he should be back very soon. I would say his next start would be in the major leagues, unless there's another setback. And then besides that, Jazz is here in Miami. He was activated today, as you guys saw. He's not in the starting lineup, according to Don Mattingly. Cody Poteen, another bad news for the Marlins rotation. He re-aggravated that right knee, which is the one he messed up earlier in the year. So he'll be shut down for 2 weeks, and I don't see him, returning anytime soon. Probably, maybe done for the year. Maybe we'll get a start in September. And Pablo Lopez also threw a bullpen session today, so maybe early September return timetable for him.
Yeah, it would be great to have Pablo back for that last month of the season, just so that the Marlins can have 4 or 5 guys, especially, if Eliezer stays healthy. You're looking at Sandy, Eliezer, Pablo, Trevor, and Zach Thompson, who I want to talk about in a second, because there's actually more to talk about than I figured there would be. But because Thompson kind of struggles a little bit in San Diego, right? And his last few times out haven't been the best. So Kevin, are we concerned? Are we kind of thinking, he's regressing to the mean a little bit, or are you thinking he's just kind of hitters are figuring him out and just kind of hitting a roadblock, and he can still play in this rotation for the rest of the year?
It's not much of a concern to me, at least. Look at the teams he's played. I mean, the San Diego Padres. Come on, Slam Diego.
Lineup. Yeah,
he's played them twice. I don't know who's the last team he played before San Diego. It might have been the Padres again. I'm not sure, but it wasn't easy. I mean, this guy's been going through it. Now is when the Marlins aren't at their best. The run support's harder to get now from this team, so you really can't blame him either. But yeah, I mean, he's regressed a little bit from the great Zach Thompson we saw really at the start of when he came in this team and started pitching. A little bit of regression, but I'm not too concerned about it. September's coming up. It'll be a different time, hopefully. And we'll see what happens with Thompson.
Yeah, 7 runs allowed his last 2 times out. Only 4 innings in both of those starts. So his last time out was in this Padres series. Allowed 4 hits, 4 runs, 4 walks, and 2 strikeouts. So couldn't get that swing and miss stuff that we've seen from him at times. And then his last time out before that was the Mets. Allowed 3 hits, 3 runs, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts. So again, only 4 strikeouts in 8 innings and 7 runs allowed in his last 2 starts. So Alex, I want to go to you. What are your concerns? What are you seeing from him where he hasn't been tight the last couple starts, and the results haven't really been there at all?
Yeah, as you said, I think 6 earned runs in his last 2 starts, both just 4 innings of work. Just a lot of pitches early, man. Just having trouble putting guys away, I think, is what you can really say about him. Had to go to the fastball because the breaking ball command, Isaac, as you stated, just he hasn't had the handle for it, which that's his best pitch. And if he doesn't have that, he's not going to get far with his fastball. So yeah, just I would really like to see him just finish guys off. I think that's the problem. Just watching him pitch, you see a lot of counts where he gets the 2 strikes and then just has trouble, and then has to come at guys with the fastball, like I said. So yeah, just finishing hitters, I think, is his biggest problem. I wouldn't say that I'm that worried about him, because this is going to happen to any young pitcher, especially a guy that comes up, and reports start getting out, and he's going to go through ups and downs. So yeah, I mean, definitely want to see a little bit better. Hopefully, against the teams that we have coming up, including this series, maybe he could do that. So yeah, it would be good to see. But yeah, the last 2 starts haven't been fantastic. Like I said, just finishing guys off is what you want to see better.
Yeah, Thompson will pitch again in this Cubs series, and we'll get to that in a second because I've got a lot to say. But the Cubs are basically throwing out a AAA lineup right now. It's pretty embarrassing, to be honest with you, what they're putting out there. And I'm just loading up for what I'm going to get into in a second. But the last thing I want to talk about before we get into the Cubs series, just from and finishing up on this Padres series, is Sandy. You kind of touched on it for a second, Alex, but I really want to dive into this one because I tweeted, we've said this so many times about this guy this year, where he does something that an ace would do. He's had 2 really bad starts this year, right? The start in Colorado where he allowed 10 runs, and the start in LA, which was worse, I guess, because he allowed 2 runs in an inning and 2/3 or whatever it was. He couldn't make it out of the second inning. So he's had 2 bad starts this year, and he's answered both of those starts with tremendous performances. And the Marlins answered, his performance with a great one as well on the offensive side of the ball. Brinson goes deep twice. Isan has a big game. Brian De La Cruz homers for the first time, and I'm sure we'll talk about him a little more as we get into this Cubs series. But Sandy Alcantara, 7 innings, 4 hits, no runs, 2 walks, 7 Ks. I mean, this guy is just so fantastic. And I want to get the walk numbers on Sandy pulled up here because, we for so long when he was young, we talked about, how the walks were going to be what bites him in his career. His walks have gone down every single year. His walks per 9, 6.48 in 2017, 6.09 in 2018, 3.69 in 2019, 3.21 last year. And this year, he's allowing under 3 walks per 9 innings. He's allowing 2.7 walks per 9 innings. His Ks are up over 8, 3.52 ERA, 3.80 FIP. The analytics actually like Sandy, which is not something that we're used to. And obviously, people had concerns about the walks and the fact that despite his great stuff, he wasn't getting a ton of swing and miss. But he has these games, Alex, where 7, 8, 9, he's got in his last 2 starts, he's gone in 2 of his last 3 starts, he's gone for 7 and 10 strikeouts respectively. So he's just been fantastic all year. He's well on his way to 100 innings. I'm looking at right now, he's got 143 and a third innings. So Alex, let's just talk about Sandy Alcantara for a second. What he's meant to this team this year. Just, season's winding down. It's getting to the back half, and he's still out there. I don't think he's missed except for when he was on the bereavement list. I don't think he's missed a start this year. He's just been fantastic, and he's been the rock that the Marlins need. And just what more can you even say about him?
Yeah, I would hate to see where this Marlins bullpen would be if not for Sandy, because
seriously,
they've already been so overworked this year with these, like I said before, with bullpen games, and then just with struggling starters and that revolving door at the back end of the rotation. For a lot of the year, Poteet comes in and does well and then gets hurt, and now you got Thompson doing well. So who knows what happens there? But yeah, I mean, just hate to think of where they would be if they didn't have that steady guy they could just count on a quality start for basically every time he goes out, as you said. Yep. So yeah, man, just as good as this guy already was, to see him getting even better with what Eli has on the screen right now with the walk rate, it's just crazy, man, to think that this guy could be getting even better than he already was or is. So yeah, it's a guy that, man, as much as they have in the minor leagues that we talk about all the time pitching, they have to extend this guy. You have to bring Sandy back. You have to give him some kind of long-term deal. I want him here for a long time because I think he's one of the better pitchers in baseball. Doesn't get the credit for it because, of course, he's on the small market Marlins, but I think this is one of the better pitchers in baseball that can compete with anybody. So great to see. Love Sandy. He's become a leader. He's a fantastic talent on the mound. Great in the clubhouse as well, as we're hearing now. So yeah, that's a guy to bring back for a long time.
Yeah, that's a guy you build around. 25 years old. He's gotten 24 starts this year. He's averaging 6 innings a start. I couldn't agree with you more, Alex, that this is the guy that you lock up. You get him locked up now. You keep him around. You build your rotation around him. And, you have so much talent that maybe somebody comes by and kind of surpasses him as the ace, the guy that you give the ball to on opening day. But at the end of the day, Sandy, I think, will always be kind of the leader of the rotation. And so, Kevin, I want to talk to you about just what he means for this team long-term, past 2021, what Sandy can mean to this team.
Well, we heard it. That window for championship, that championship window's now, and he's going to be maybe one of the most important players on this Miami Marlins team. There are many games that I don't think with any other pitcher we could have won. Sandy really is an ace. He is the ace. We talk about Trevor. We talk about Pablo. Trevor and Pablo are outstanding players on this organization and this rotation as well. But Sandy just stands out of these two guys. I mean, Sandy has experience. He's pitched the full game this season with the Cardinals, even though it didn't end the right way. Yeah. But he's pitched a full
crazy.
Game.
That game was crazy, man.
He's done it all besides the no-hitter. He's done it all. Sandy is one hell of a pitcher, and if they don't lock him up, that might be the worst decision the Marlins have ever made in the franchise, man. This is one hell of a pitcher, and if they don't keep him, I don't know what the fans are gonna do. I don't know what we're gonna do. It's gonna be crazy if Miami just doesn't sign him and pulls off a Starlin Marte, man.
Yeah, well, there's still plenty of years of control left with Sandy, but it would be great to get those. The price I heard was 5 years, $50 million. And
if that's what it is,
you have to do that. And Alex Contreras says keep one, Sandy or Pablo. I'm
keeping
not
Sandy.
sure that I agree. Out of those two, I would keep Sandy, but I'm not sure that like you can necessarily only keep one if you're the Marlins. Obviously, I think Pablo does have some trade value, and there's so much coming behind. But I would hold on to both of them at least for now because you're right, Kevin. Their championship window has to start opening eventually because they have 3 pitchers
Mish said
and
it.
more coming, right? Under 26 years old that are fantastic. And that's a core for a winning team if you plug in the right pieces around them. So I've always said, as long as they have the pitching, as I'm looking at Bally Sports right now, and Jazz is wearing a "You Like Jazz" shirt. He's just incredible. But you have your 3 pitchers, and you put in the pieces like guys like Jazz, guys like Jesus Sanchez, Lewin Diaz, these guys that are coming. You start putting in these pieces, finding the right combination. You talked about how the Marlins don't have a ton of hitting and the offense has been bad and they haven't, not sure they're going to spend money on big hitters. But if you can plug in the right pieces for one season, look at what happened with 2003. They plugged in Pudge for 1 year. You plug in the right pieces for 1 year at a time and you can make it, work. Obviously you want to have some of the guys locked up. You want to have your cornerstone guys. But I just think that as long as that pitching is there, the Marlins will have a chance. And so you've got to start plugging in the right pieces. And that obviously starts this offseason. But when I think about the long-term future of this team, I think that Sandy is, has to play a huge role. And if you don't lock him up and, these 3 years of control go by and you're either forced to trade him or he moves on in free agency, you're right, Kev, it would be a disaster. And you might want to get him now while you can get him cheap, because another season like this and he's going to want even more money than he could command right now. And I think 5 years, $50 million would be a steal for Sandy Alcantara. But definitely, the Marlins have an open spot tomorrow. And Alex, correct me if I'm wrong, but Eliezer, he would not be scheduled to go there, right? It would be the next open spot.
I think he just had his rehab start. What was it, last night or the night before?
Yeah, it was last night. Okay, yeah.
So it would. I don't think it would be him in this spot for sure.
No, it wouldn't be tomorrow.
Right.
Then yeah, so
maybe next series, but
so the open spot is tomorrow, and then they play on Sunday, and then the next open spot is on Monday. That's going to be squeezing in if he pitched on Thursday, Monday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So he would be scheduled to pitch Tuesday, but that's Sandy's day, and then Luzardo is the next day, and then Thursday would be the next open day. So the Marlins might make some adjustments to, for those wondering when Eliezer will be back, because I see that going on in the chat right now, and I've seen that on my timeline as well. I guess he's not going to be back this weekend because I forgot that he pitched last night, but anyway, let's start getting into it, because the Marlins and Cubs and the Cubs come to town, and man, what a season for the Cubs it's been. It's been interesting. I'm looking at it now. They actually have a better record, have more wins than the Marlins. The Cubs are 52-65, and the Marlins are 48-67. It seems, I guess that's probably played more games than the Marlins, but I mean, yeah, we all know what happened with the Cubs, right? So they have this great start to the year, and they were in first place in the National League Central. When I went up to Chicago, they were battling with the Brewers for the first place in National League Central. They go on this big long winning streak. They go out to LA. They pitched a combined no-hitter. I stayed up for that combined no-hitter, and they pitched a combined no-hitter against the Dodgers. And then they reel off 11 losses in a row. And we all kind of came into the year, and everybody was saying, okay, this could be the last go-around for the Cubs. There was speculation Chris Bryant would be traded in the offseason. Anthony Rizzo would be traded in the offseason. And look, did the Cubs have to do what they had to do based on the circumstances? I guess so. But my frustration is it never really should have gotten here. And this goes into a bigger discussion that I want to kind of have about just that needs to be had about baseball, which is, is rebuilding really real? Is it really necessary? I kind of look at rebuilding and I'm like, it's just a money saver for organizations that don't want to pay their players big money. They don't want to invest in a winning product. You look at the Cubs, and in 2015, right, they go to the NLCS. They get swept by the Mets, but they were this young team. They had the Rookie of the Year. They had an emerging superstar in Rizzo. They had players like Baez and Addison Russell who fell off, and Jason Hayward on this big money deal. It hasn't worked out. It's part of the reason that they're in this position now. But Jason Hayward and Kyle Schwarber had a great rookie year. And you're looking at what happened in 2015, and then obviously 2016. They were by far the best team in baseball. They were one of the best teams I've ever seen in baseball. They go on and they win the World Series, and then after that, they go to the NLCS in 2017. They go to the wild card game and lose. They had to play out game 163 against the Brewers, lose the wild card game, miss the playoffs the next year, and then we all know what happened last year with the Cubs in the playoffs, where the Marlins and the Cubs face off in this 3-game series at Wrigley Field, and the Marlins swept them right out of town, and they made it look. The Cubs went down without a whimper. They scored 1 run in the series, and it was an Ian Happ home run. And here they are. So they end up in this position because of their own doing in my eyes. And I kind of look at it and I'm saying, you had this core where nobody thought this core, it looked like a dynasty to a lot of people. I think, it looked like they were about to run the league with, the Cleveland baseball team who they face, the Indians who they faced in the World Series that year, and some of these, the Dodgers, and it looked like it was going to be the Dodgers and the Cubs and the NLCS, year after year after year. And now you're looking at them and they're fielding a AAA roster, and the Marlins are favored because Wilson Contreras is on the IL, and Rafael Ortega has been great recently. He's been on this great run, and he's been kind of a sensation for the Cubs in the post Bryant Rizzo Baez era. But it's just crazy to me that I look around the league, and I was at the game where Rizzo was first introduced as a Yankee, and he hits the home run, and he basically swept the Marlins that weekend, right? And then Baez, I just saw, goes on the injured list for the Mets, and Bryant is out, and he's gonna possibly win a World Series with the Giants. That team is so fantastic. And man, it's just crazy how the Cubs got here, to think about it, where they were this, possible dynasty. They were a burgeoning dynasty, and now they're here, and the Marlins are possibly a better team than them. I mean, the Cubs have a better record, but it's just crazy, 52-65. I mean, they're 13 games under 500. They were a first place team at one point this year, and then they just fell apart. And I just think it's such a shame that this is a part of the game, this rebuilding thing, this rebuilding bullshit, I should really call it. It's bullshit. It's what it is, where owners, big money owners, the Ricketts family is worth billions and billions of dollars, and they just decide we're going to offer Anthony Rizzo a 5-year, $70 million contract that he's clearly worth way more than, and we're not really going to give Chris Bryant a big money extension offer. We're not going to extend, Javier Baez. These are superstar players. And it's bullshit to me, and it's not just the Cubs, right? You see it elsewhere. And obviously for me, it hurts more because it's the Cubs, and I loved this team and I loved that core, but it happens too often in baseball. The Marlins have undergone it a few times with that World Series team where they had all these great players and they didn't want to pay them and they shipped them right out the door. Obviously I think the rebuild in 2017 was very different circumstances, right? Like there are some situations that teams can find themselves in where they're left with no choice but to trade their superstars, on big money contracts, where the Marlins are in $400 million of debt. But when you're a team like the Cubs in a big market, you've got big money owners, you've got great players, and you just refuse to pay them. That's such a bullshit message to the fans, and just so ridiculous to say, we care about winning. Stick with us. We'll be there. Give us a few more years. We did it once. We can do it again. And I just think that's just a bad message to send to the fans. And it just shows, the Ricketts, look, they got the World Series, right? And Chicago and Cubs fans will always be grateful for that World Series, and they've done a great job around Wrigley Field. When I went there in 2016, it was, it's completely different from when I went there just, a few months ago. But I mean, it's just crazy to me that you just send it in like that, and you just say, we have the money to pay these guys, but I'm just going to refuse to do it, and I'm going to send, tell the fans to trust us and that we're going to build it back up and we're going to do it the right way. And this is, all part of the plan to get these guys back. And we're going to trade for you, Darvish, for some high schoolers. And, I think they got some pretty good prospects. They got Peter Crow Armstrong, who's a great prospect for Javier Baez. And I think, if you want to ignore the context, that's a pretty good deal. Expiring contract, you get a really good prospect. But Bryant, Baez, and Rizzo meant so much more to this city than just being good baseball players, especially Anthony Rizzo. I mean, that one just stung so much. He was the captain, the heart and soul of the Cubs. And I know I'm ranting for a long time, and I want to get you guys in on this to talk about this, topic of rebuilding. But he meant so much to the Cubs and to the organization, to the city of Chicago. He was such a good Samaritan, so charitable. He was a cancer survivor, and he was always visiting hospitals and kids and doing all this stuff. And, Bryant said he wanted to play his whole career there. And Javi Baez, these guys loved Chicago. And for them to be treated the way they were is so ridiculous. I mean, and now look at the team they're sending out there to their fans. I still love the Cubs, and it's my dog Honeybee joins me on the screen. But, look at this lineup they're sending out there. Matt Duffy. I texted my buddies from Chicago the other day. Who is Frank Schwindel? Like, what is a Frank Schwindel? David Bodie, who's been a utility player, was supposed to be kind of the, Ben Zobrist 2.0 when the Zobrist thing happened. And, he's a good player and he's solid, but it hasn't really, worked out. Patrick Wisdom, actually, here, you want the bright spot for the team. Patrick Wisdom is a legitimate Rookie of the Year candidate. I think he's got the highest OPS among all rookies, and he leads them in home runs as well. He's a good player. Robinson Chirinos, Ian Happ. I mean, look at some of these names. John Eshwe Fargas was on the Mets earlier this year, and he played the Marlins. If you guys remember in that series where the Marlins, the Mets lineup was in pieces because it was a AAA lineup because of all the injuries they had. Sergio Alcantara has been like a utility player for them and had a pretty good year. And then Adbert Alzolay is on the mound for them. And he was supposed to be one of the problems the Cubs had during their, generation was they never really grew a homegrown pitcher, right? So whereas the Marlins grew all these homegrown pitchers, the Cubs, it was all hitters. It was Schwarber and Bryan and Baez and Addison Russell and, whoever else you want to name. But they never really had the pitcher. Adbert Alzolay was supposed to be that pitcher, and it took him 2-3 years of being in the major leagues to really find his footing. And he's having a pretty good year this year, but for some reason he can't get lefties out. So if the Marlins have any lefties in the lineup today, which looking at it, I don't think they do because Jazz isn't in the lineup. But yeah, I mean, you're looking at a AAA lineup that they're sending out there. And to do that after what they had and to let it fizzle down to the point where you have to send a AAA lineup out there because you had to trade Bryant, Baez, and Rizzo because you mismanaged this core so poorly, just sends such a terrible message. And I just saw an article on ESPN about how to get rid of tanking, how to get rid of this plague that plagues MLB where teams are constantly rebuilding. Think about the Pirates. They're always in the shit, always rebuilding. And it's just, it's a garbage narrative. It's a really garbage narrative. And it's a fake thing that owners have created to save money, to say we're rebuilding, when actually I just think all it is a cash grab. So I've been going on for a while. This is obviously a passionate subject for me. You guys know that, I really love the Cubbies and stuff. And so I want to get your thoughts, though, on the overarching discussion, though, about rebuilding. And Alex, I saw you nodding and look, you had some looks. So I want to put my finger on where your thoughts are, because I can't tell based on your reactions on what you think about this whole, rebuilding narrative that owners push.
I mean, yeah, I mostly agree with everything that you said. I mean, it's tough to see a huge market team like the Cubs do something like that. But man, I guess the thought process, if I had to put it to a thought process for ownership, minor league system's not great. Their minor league system was like 23rd or 24th in baseball preseason. I think they had like 2 or 3 guys in the top 100, and they were all at the back end, nobody in the top 50. So, I mean, I guess it's just they saw the opportunity there that they didn't think they were going to be competitive this year. They probably won't be competitive next year now. So
it'll be a while. It might be a while.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I mean, I really, to put my finger on it, I guess it would be that they saw this as the opportunity to bring in the new their new look, their new core, their entire new team, because they got rid of everybody. So yeah, it's going to be a rough, I guess, rest of this year for sure, and then definitely next year looks like as well, unless they do something else. Which if they're going all the way in this direction, which they are, they're going to buy into that. They're going to buy into developing the minor league talent. So a different time in Chicago now, I would say, than where they were, for the last while. I mean, great while with, everything they just got rid of. So, I was surprised to see them get rid of everything. Especially, I mean, they weren't completely out of it, right? I mean, I don't think they were necessarily a favorite.
Yeah. So
they weren't out of it.
Yeah, they fell off the pace a little bit. They were only a couple games under 500, I think, at the deadline, and they were just kind of like hanging around. But that 11-game win streak was the excuse they needed, right? So they had been trying to find an excuse all year. They, when they were winning, you could tell like that wasn't the plan, right? They weren't supposed to win. They were supposed to lose so that they could sell everybody at the deadline. And then the Cubs started winning and they were going to have to buy. And, some people were like, well, maybe that's not the best thing for the club if they start buying and trade more of the farm system when some of these guys might not resign. But then they went on the 11-game win streak, and that was all that the organization needed. And you look at it now, 4 top 100 prospects. Brennan Davis is a great player. He's a great player. And another team that did it, the Cubs weren't the only ones. The Nationals, they play in DC. Yeah. This might be even worse, to be honest with you, because at least we've seen the Cubs kind of, faded away a little bit, right? Like it was World Series, and then they just kind of, the problem was they kept running the same team back out there. It never got any better. And then, they got to this point. But the Nationals won the World Series 2 years ago, and they had a great core with Trey Turner and Max Scherzer, and Juan Soto is this superstar that you have to build around. You got to start winning in his window. So, Kev, the Nationals in the Marlins division, and they go out and do it, and they might be even worse, right? And there's the saying, if you're going to do it, just tear the whole thing down, right? It's basically like what Jed Hoyer says. If you're going to do it, you got to go all in. But Look at what the San Francisco Giants have done. They rebuilt in a year or two. They were supposed to still be rebuilding this year. Now they're World Series contenders, possibly favorites to some people. So what are your thoughts on this whole rebuilding nonsense, Kevin? I'm curious.
I think we're used to rebuilds by now as a Marlins fan. 2003 and on. Let's just put it like that. Yeah, and now with the Cubs, it's going to be a while. I mean, look at the Marlins. They haven't won since 2003, let's be honest. And now 2020 is when they made the playoffs. So it doesn't make it any better for you, Ethan, when it comes to the Cubs not rebuilding. But, Oh, and tonight we're going to see a AAA matchup, Marlins versus Cubs in Miami. Not in Jacksonville, but
no, seriously.
Rebuilding sucks for anyone, but it also opens new opportunities to see new players, that maybe we've been hyping up. For example, Eddie Cabrera, we might see him in September, maybe Max Meyer next year, hopefully. JJ Bleday at some point, and it's kind of fun at the same time because you have fun seeing these new guys come up, but you want to see your team win. Yep. And that's what we thought we were seeing with the Marlins. The Cubs, we thought they were going to be a competitive team this season. The Cubs, they never had enough pitching, I would say, maybe. Not the biggest Cubs guy here, so I can't really be talking about.
I can break it down for you, Kev. I won't, bore people too much. Pitching was a problem, certainly. But I just think it just sucks for the fans. Like I said, it's just such a bad message to send to the fans. Like you have these 3 players, you love them. You go to Wrigleyville, and the 3 jerseys you will see most are Chris Bryant, Anthony Rizzo, and Javier Baez. In fact, to tell the truth, I have a Chris Bryant blue one, I have an Anthony Rizzo gray one, and I have a Javi Baez white one, and they were all dealt at the deadline. And that's just kind of how, when you have that, it's such a bad message to send to the fans. Like I said, like, you love these guys. Oh, well, we view them as assets. We view them as guys that can get more value for the team. We don't really view them as, we want to keep them and give back to them for what they did for this city, and that's why, the business of sports, it's obviously at the end of the day, people see it as a business, but that's a whole nother argument about, how flawed is it to view sports as a business. I think it's pretty wrong. I'm a huge proponent of the fact that it's entertainment, and that's a great idea, John, buying blank jerseys,
That's
because
what I've been doing. I'm
you
not
just
gonna
really
lie.
never know. But you thought like, man, I see Anthony Rizzo, I'm like, this guy's gonna be there forever. When I went, they were killing it. They were great.
Yeah.
They were having a great year, and
I
first
mean, I
place.
went
and
out
I'm
and bought
thinking,
a Stanton jersey after they signed him, and
yeah.
look what happened there. So, I mean, that's a different,
No,
whole
like,
different story with the money and everything with versus the Cubs versus the Marlins. But
yeah,
you
and
know.
here you want to relay this, relate this to the Marlins. So and relate this to the fans of the Marlins, because obviously I think you guys are going to get bored of me, talking about this Cubs this whole time. But look, the Marlins, like you said, Kevin, Marlins fans have gotten used to this, but they shouldn't have to get used to this. This shouldn't be how a team is run, right?
Yeah.
The way the old regime ran the team, where a guy gets value and he's a good player, and now you're going to have to pay him, ship him out the door. The Rays, like everybody loves the Rays, right? Everybody loves the little old Rays and how great they are at, building a team with such a low budget. And, the A's, the same thing. They're famous for Moneyball, and I love Moneyball as much as the next guy, and I love the story and everything. But at the end of the day, like, I looked at it a couple years ago, I remember being like, wow, that was really wrong. Like, pay your superstars. I understand that, Oakland really had no money and the Rays really have no money. But I mean, God, Blake Snell, Cy Young winner, and at the height of his value, instead of signing him long term and saying, we're going to win and we're going to keep this guy around and we're going to build around this guy, they ship him off. And it's just, I'm just tired of it. And now it comes to the Cubs. And, Jeremy Taché brought this up, and I guess we can kind of go here with, the MLB is looking into an expanded playoff, right? And adding one more team, two more teams, whatever it is, to the playoff. That's 2, 3, 5, 5, 6 more teams that are on that borderline that say, wow, this gives us a reason to really go for it in the offseason.
Let's be honest.
This gives us a reason to the Marlins could be on that borderline, right, Kev?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. If it wasn't for that expanded playoffs in 2020, Marlins might have not made the playoffs. That's why I'm saying all these rules may be better. And Miami's for sure set themselves up for 2022. I mean, we look at it, they have Jesus Aguilar in 2022. Garrett Cooper's coming back, hopefully. You have Lewin, who hopefully we see him up in the Major League roster, because that guy has been tearing it up in AAA. He has nothing more to prove up down there. So it's time for him to see him up here. I mean, Miami very much has set themselves up. They're in for a center fielder, hopefully. I'm not going to say it's Starlin Marte, but Brian Reynolds, which we've talked about a lot, is one we've talked about a lot there. And, now we look at all these guys. I mean, you're now starting to rebuild with the Cubs, maybe. But the Marlins are nearing, hopefully, the end of it. So It's a completely different perspective. But when you really look at it, it was some hard years to see 100 losses a year, especially with all the hype that we've been seeing.
And the Cubs went.
Ready.
Yeah, go ahead, Alex. Yeah.
Speaking about guys that are ready, Edward Cabrera in 6 innings had 12 strikeouts.
Yeah.
So that's 3 straight starts now where he's had at least 11 strikeouts. So nothing left to prove in AAA. I think we talked about before about open days and stuff. Man, at this point, why not? That guy's ready to go. He's dominating AAA in hitters in pretty favorable hitters park. So get him up here, man. I mean, we were saying September expanded roster. Do it now. Screw it.
And we're getting a bullpen game at least every couple days. Just put the guy in there. I mean, it's time to make it happen. I understand you want to wait for the expanded rosters, but if that's the case, but man, just put in Eddie already. There's so many guys that can get DFA'd on that roster.
The one thing that with Eddie, and then I want to tie up the discussion we were having about rebuilding. The one thing with Eddie is you don't want to do what you've done with Braxton and with Neidert and Holloway and these guys you've been calling up and sending down from AAA. You don't want to do that with Cabrera. When he's here, you want him to be here, and Kim Ng said that. When he's here, he's here for good, and they've got the roster locked in, and with all this roster fluctuation and stuff to do right now. But anyway, just on Lewin, since you mentioned him, Kevin, 246 in AAA right now with a 863 OPS and 16 home runs this year. It's a really great year, and the ball is not landing a ton, so that's why the average is low, and so the numbers could be even better. But just to wrap up on this, discussion about rebuilding before we really start looking into what we expect from this series, because oh boy, we got something staring down the barrel at us. But the thing I wanted to talk about is, Kevin, you talked about how the Marlins are nearing the end, right?
Hopefully.
And the Cubs are, hopefully, and the Cubs are starting again. The Cubs already went through this, right? They obviously they did it for 108 years, kind of, but they tore it down, in the late 2000s, in the late 2010s, or late 2000s, early 2010s. They tore it down when they brought Theo Epstein in, from the Red Sox curse breaker, brought him in to break the Cub curse in Chicago. They went through that. Then they had the great years. Now they have to do it again. And it's just like you making your fans sit through this all over again. They remember the pain, but they also remember more freshly what just happened. And now they're going to, you're going to make them watch this AAA product. Like, I'll be honest, I haven't been watching the Cubs. They're unwatchable. They're coming in right off of going minus 23 to the Brewers in their last two games. They lost 17-4 yesterday, and then they lose 10-0 the night before. Corbin Burns strikes out 10 in a row. He strikes out 15 total. Like, come on, this is an unwatchable product, and the Marlins, they're being saved by the fact that they have some of the, young guys coming up, right? Especially, when Eddie Cabrera comes up, everybody wants to watch Chaz. Lou's been a sensation the last couple of weeks, and he's been great, and hopefully he continues to be great. But I'm looking at it now. So here you go. Missing Cubbies, former Cubs in new homes. Jock Peterson, Andrew Chafin, Anthony Rizzo, Jake Marisnick, Craig Kimbrell, Javier Baez, Trevor Williams, Chris Bryant. Braves, Athletics, Yankees, Padres, White Sox, Mets, Giants.
Yikes.
It's pathetic. And here you go. Matt Duffy, Frank Schwindel, David Bodie, Patrick Wisdom, Robinson Chirinos, Ian Happ, John Ashby Fargas, Sergio Alcantara, and Adbert Alzolay. And that leads us into the discussion of this series where the Marlins are favored. It might be one of the only series the Marlins have been favored in recently or for the rest of the season. And let's take a look at the pitching matchups here. I know tonight is Luzardo, and Kyle Hendricks is going for the Cubs. And then the Marlins have that open spot tomorrow where probably a bullpen day. We'll see. Maybe is Nick Neidert a guy? Alex, you've been keeping an eye on AAA. Is he on rest tomorrow?
Yeah, me and Eli were talking about this before you got in here, before the show started. Mm-hmm. He's scheduled to pitch in the second game of a doubleheader tonight, so He is in line to throw. But I would keep an eye on that in AAA. That game should be getting started here pretty shortly. If he gets pulled from that start, it will be him in Miami tomorrow. If not, I honestly don't know, because there's literally nobody else really in AAA that would be.
What's up with Jordan Holloway? Where's Jordan Holloway?
Oh, man, that's a good question. Last I heard, I think he is still hurt, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, he's hurt. Okay, he was hurt.
I think so. I would have to double check that. But yeah,
would Braxton be an option
for a while? Maybe I just missed him, but yeah. Looking at it here now, he is active. I'll look at when the last time he threw was, because that's a good question. I know I haven't seen him in a little bit.
Would Braxton Garrett be an option for tomorrow?
Yeah,
no?
Holloway actually pitched
Garrett.
last night. So
Holloway pitched last night. Okay, so
I didn't watch that game, so I missed that. But yeah, he's fine. He's healthy, but he's not available. He pitched yesterday. So
Brax and Neidert are options.
Yeah. If it's not Neidert, I don't know. So yeah, there's really nobody else. So that would be my guess.
That'll be a bullpen game. I'm gonna be at that game tomorrow.
And then
it must be a bullpen. I don't know.
And then Zach Davies is going for the Cubs tomorrow. So Zach Davies was traded for Yu Darvish, just so we all know. And he's been terrible this year. His numbers he lets up just bomb after bomb after bomb. He's got a 5.26 ERA. Last game, he let up 3 home runs. I think all of them were in the first inning. He let up 7 hits and 7 runs in 2 innings. He's been pretty brutal. It's been in fact, his last 2 times out against Chicago and then against Colorado, he's let up 7 runs both times. So he's allowed 14 runs in his last 6 innings. So that's great for the Marlins, coming in great for the Cubs. And then Alec Mills, who has a no-hitter. He threw a no-hitter last year, actually, funny enough. And he was one of those guys, again, another homegrown pitching prospect that the Cubs just never really got to get off the ground. He's turned into like a back end of the rotation guy. He goes up against Zach Thompson on Sunday. So, Kev, what do we look forward to here? I don't think it's a lot, but what do Marlins and Cubs? It's August. It's the dog days, and both of these teams are out of the playoff race. I think the Marlins are in last place. I think the Cubs might be there. No, they have the Pirates in that division, saving them. But they are 10 games out of last place. But Kev, what get me excited, man. Get me excited.
Lewis Brinson.
There you go.
Jesus Luzardo tonight, third start. Hopefully he bounces back. And another guy I've very much been excited about has been Brian De La Cruz. This guy's just playing great baseball, man. There's no other way to put it. Defensively, hit his first homer, Petco Park. All I could say, man. And prediction, I want to say sweep, but I'm not gonna. I'm gonna go sweep. I know I said I would never predict a sweep, but it's tempting. AAA Cubs, Trip versus the AAA Marlins. Marlins are actually favored for the first time in a long, long time. So, sweep.
All right, Kevin going with the sweep. Alex Carver, talk to me. One thing I wanted to ask you, Alex. Luzardo on the mound, obviously got to bounce back from that last start. Thoughts on what he has to do to bounce back?
Yeah, I think this is what the real issue that has been hampering him in AAA and this before he came to the Marlins, and now this year. I've said it so many times, dude, with the repeatability and the control, because last start he did not have control of the breaking pitches and he had to rely on the fastball. He got hurt. Do that at Coors Field. You got to rely on the fastball. Guys are going to hit you. So that's exactly what you saw. Man, just has to control the breaking pitches, especially the slider. We know he likes to bust guys in with that slider, but if he goes too far in and he's hitting guys, you can't be effective, obviously, if you're giving up base runners and, even if you don't hit a guy and then you get in hitters counts, and it sucks. So he's in a good spot for sure with everything that we just talked about with the Cubs, back at Lone Depot Park. So this is the spot for him to bounce back, and that's what you have to see tonight out of Jesus Luzardo is I want to see quality start, man. We know he went 5 innings in his first start. I want to see quality start tonight against this team. So yeah, that's what you have to see out of Jesus. And then the rest of the team, I think Kevin called it out. Brinson continue. De La Cruz has looked awesome. I've liked Alex Jackson. That guy does not hit the ball soft at all. Even if he makes an out, that guy hits the ball hard. So like to see more from him and just take advantage of a good situation, man. I'm going to go 2-1 with the uncertainty of tomorrow. If it is night or tomorrow, it could very well be a sweep. If it's bullpen game, I think they could lose that game. This bullpen's worn. They're just worn out, bro. Even with the day off, this bullpen's worn out. So, yeah, I'll say 2 out of 3. And keep it safe. But if Nider goes tomorrow for the Fish, it could be a sweep.
What was so weird to me about the Pen is they really didn't use a lot of the big guys on the trip. And this was one of the most confusing things to me was that second game in San Diego. Brinson hits the home run in the top of the 8th inning. He cuts it to a 1-run game. And it's a 1-run game. It's a 1-run game, okay? And instead of one of the high leverage guys, they put in Moramondo, who had just been called up. And of course, what did we think was going to happen? He lets up 4 runs and the Marlins lose the game. So
Bender.
That one was just like, I know the bullpen's overworked, but they didn't really I didn't see the high leverage guys a ton on that trip. So
and then obviously Sandy's not available that they're
resting. No, it must have been.
It must have been because Rowson knows what he's doing. He wouldn't put in. I
thought he did a good job.
Limbo, Sean Moramondo in a high leverage spot if he doesn't have to. So I would say it was probably a case of availability, but
I think he did a pretty good job, Rowson. Yeah. Obviously the results didn't really go his way, but it's nice to have Donnie back, and it's nice to see him back, and obviously glad he's healthy and everything. But Lewis Brinson, man, 390, 432, 780 slugging in August. And here's some good news. So obviously.
There's the bomb.
The video worked. Great. Finally, the video worked with us talking over it. But, look at the swings. He put some really great swings on balls. I just saw he was 5. I think he hit 524 on that road trip, 3 doubles, 3 home runs. Obviously, the 2 home runs on Wednesday in the day game against San Diego. And here's one thing. So we've talked about how the strikeouts are still pretty high for Brinson, but only 22% in August. And for him and for the major leagues, that's in today's game, that's a pretty good number at 20, under 23% for Lewis Brinson. I would like to see more walks from him. I would like to see the plate discipline start improving a little bit. But nevertheless, it's been great for him. And who would have thought that in August of 2021, after what the Marlins have been through with Lewis Brinson, that he would be what we look forward to, what we get excited about going into this series. And, listen, it's great for the guy. I'm so happy for the guy after what he's been through. And like I've said before, plenty of times, he's always been class and he's always been great. And, the fans, it's great to see that the fans, instead of making jokes and stuff, are really, truly happy for the guy. Yeah. And he because he deserves it. And, talk about, sorry, I got distracted for a second, but going back to this series, with the Cubs coming to town, 3 games, I don't even know where to go with this. The teams are just not, they're just not good teams. It's just not good teams. And I'm looking at it. This is funny. The batting leaders on the game preview for the Cubs and the Marlins, home runs, Javier Baez and Adam Duvall, both not on their respective teams anymore. Chris Bryant and Miguel Rojas. Bryant, obviously leading in batting average, not on the team anymore. And Javier Baez led them in runs batted in before he was traded. They're just not, neither of these teams are just any that good, and we'll have to find something exciting. I'm sure it's baseball. We'll always find something exciting. I'm going to go and say that Lewis Brinson is on the TV talking to Kelly Sacco right now. I'm going to say he has another good series and kind of keeps it rolling. He's going to come down to earth eventually, I think. He's obviously not going to hit 520 for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever, but hopefully it's just not too bad for him. But I'm just so happy for him and looking to see something from the Marlins. Hopefully Luzardo pitches well tonight. I think that's the biggest thing that you'll be looking for in this series. And Brian De La Cruz, we kind of touched on it a little bit, but he hit a home run in San Diego, and I think that's great for him in terms of the last kind of thing for him has been showing the power tools, showing power. And so we've seen the hit tool is there, the fielding, the arm is definitely there, good speed, especially defensively. And now it's just the power to see, maybe not a 5-tool player the way you think about like Mike Trout is a 5-tool player, but a guy that can flash all 5 of those tools. So anyway, just talking in circles right now, trying to get us to 7:10, but I guess we'll wrap this one up a little early. I am going to go ahead and say that the Marlins take 2 of 3 from the Cubs. Okay. I'll go ahead. I was lingering between take and drop there for a second, but I'll just go ahead and say take so that you guys don't get mad at me because I already talked about the Cubs enough. But again, this Cubs team is just, it's really sad. It's really sad what they did to this team and the product that they're sending out on the field right now. I mean, to lose 27-3 or whatever it was over the last, or 27-4 over the last 2 days, it's just ridiculous. And to send this kind of product out there is really embarrassing. So anyway, for Isaac, who's at the game with us earlier, for Eli, for Kevin, for Alex, shorter crew. Oh, Isaac said 2 out of 3 for the Marlins as well. And then I'm sure that Noah is out there predicting a sweep right now. So for all of us here at Fish Stripes, enjoy your weekend, enjoy the series, try and find something fun in the series, and go Cubs and go Marlins.